We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
East Anglia. Around Lincoln alone there are over 30 deserted airfields.
Saint Cecilia. That's it. They used to be playing when we went out. The last one went out, and the first one back always had to put the same record on. It was absolutely worn out, you know.
Skellingthorpe Airfield, 4 miles southwest of Lincoln. It's deserted today, but 25 years ago there were 2,500 people on this aerodrome, the base of 50 and 61 squadrons of Bomber Command RAF. A 2,500 strong community whose sole purpose was to keep the 16 Lancaster bombers from each squadron available for nightly sorties over occupied Europe.
Solitude and silently pray that heaven will protect you, dear, and there'll come a day the storm will be over and that we'll meet again at the shrine of Saint Cecilia.
Munich, Hanover, Berlin, Stuttgart, Augsburg, Essen, Nuremberg, Schweinfurt, Frankfurt, Marseille, Maid de Camp.
An area of land 2.5 miles south of Skellingthorpe, known as Black Moor, was acquired in 1940, intended as a satellite for Waddington. The airfield was of the standard pattern of 3 runways, the main of 1,650 yards and the subsidiaries both of 1,400 yards, with 1 Type B1 and 2 Type T2 hangars. Off the perimeter track were 36 pan-type dispersals. Nissen huts were used for accommodation. RAF Skellingthorpe opened in No. 5 Group Bomber Command in November 1941, and on the 26th, No. 50 Squadron arrived from Swinderby with Hampdens. No. 455 RAF Squadron also arrived from Swinderby with Hampdens, so that hard runways could be laid, although most of its personnel remained billeted at Swinderby through a lack of facilities at Skellingthorpe. It moved to Wigsley on the 8th of February 1942. No. 50 Squadron exchanged their Hampdens for Avro Manchesters during April.
Hats off to the Avro Manchester, used with striking success in the latest and biggest RAF bombing offensive against Germany. It's the most luxuriously fitted of our new bombers. Heat from the engine is regulated throughout to provide a sort of central heating system. One of the most powerful aircraft in the world, the Manchester's defensive armament comprises 8 machine guns mounted in 3 power-operated turrets, 2 each in the nose and dorsal turrets, and 4 in the tail. Its bomb racks can accommodate the heaviest bombs yet in service. Coupled with the fact that the standard of crew comfort rivals that of a civilian airliner, is its steadiness in flight, efficiently soundproofed interior, and complete absence of vibration. Well, it's nice to know that the lads are comfortable upstairs in Manchester while they're making things uncomfortable downstairs in Mannheim.
They proved to be underpowered and unreliable, with a ceiling height less than that of the Hampdens they had replaced. By May, Lancaster 1s and 3s started to arrive at the squadron to replace the Manchesters. On Operation Millennium, the 1,000-bomber attack on Cologne on the night of the 31st of May, 17 Manchesters were sent by 50 Squadron. 2 failed to return. Manchester L7301 was caught by searchlights and subjected to intense and accurate anti-aircraft fire. Despite the damage, Flying Officer Leslie Manser held his course and bombed the target successfully from a height of 7,000 feet. Then he set course for base. Still under heavy fire, despite violent, evasive action and descending to under 1,000 feet, the aircraft was hit repeatedly. The rear gunner was wounded, the front cabin filled with smoke, and the port engine was overheating badly. Flying Officer Manser took the aircraft up to 2,000 feet, at which point the port engine burst into flames, and it took 10 minutes to put the fire out. But by which time the engine was out of action, part of the wing was burnt, and the airspeed of the aircraft became dangerously low on one engine, making the aircraft extremely difficult to handle. The crew were ordered to bail out. A sergeant handed Flying Officer Manser a parachute, but he waved it away, telling the sergeant to jump at once, as he could only hold the aircraft steady for a few more seconds. While the crew were descending by parachute, they saw the aircraft plunge to earth and burst into flames on impact into a dike at Brie, 13 miles northeast of Genk in Belgium. Pilot Officer Barnes was taken prisoner, but Sergeant Bavistock, Pilot Officer Horsley, Sergeant King, Sergeant Mills and Sergeant Naylor all evaded capture and made their way back to the UK. The testimonies of the 5 evaders were instrumental in the posthumous award of the VC. The citation for the award read, "Impressing home his attack in the face of strong opposition, in striving against heavy odds to bring back his aircraft and crew, and finally, when in extreme peril thinking only of the safety of his comrades, Flying Officer Manser displayed determination and valour of the highest order." By June, the Manchesters were gone. No. 50 Squadron returned to Swinderby on the 20th of June as Skellingthorpe was scheduled to be upgraded to Class A standard, with the main runway extended to 2,000 yards. No. 97 and No. 106 conversion flights arrived from Coningsby on the 23rd of September with Lancasters, but their stay was brief, and on the 16th of October, Skellingthorpe was declared operational and they exchanged with No. 50 Squadron at Swinderby. No. 1485 target towing and gunnery flight and No. 1506 beam approach training flight arrived from Fullbeck on the 23rd of August 1943. Their stay was brief and a busy November saw number 1506 flight disbanded on the 2nd, and number 1485 flight moved to Syerston on the 12th. Skellingthorpe became a substation number 53 base, with the parent at Waddington on the 14th, in time for the arrival of 61 Squadron from Syerston with Lancasters on the 16th. Number 61 Squadron was moved to Coningsby on the 1st of February 1944. However, they returned on the 13th of April when Coningsby became the headquarters of Number 5 Group's Special Duties Operations. The following month, on the 19th of May, 2 airmen were killed and substantial damage to a hangar was caused when 3 £1,000 bombs dislodged from a tractor-towed bomb trolley and exploded. Numbers 50 and 61 squadrons flew their last missions of the war against an oil refinery at Vallo in Norway on the 25th to 26th of April 1945, before both being moved on the 15th of June to Sturgate. Number 619 Squadron arrived from Strubby with their Lancasters on the 30th of June to disband. Number 463 Royal Australian Air Force Squadron arrived from Waddington with their Lancasters on the 3rd of July to disband. Number 619 Squadron was disbanded at Skellingthorpe on the 18th of July. Number 463 Squadron disbanded at Skellingthorpe on the 25th of September. There were no more resident flying units based at Skellingthorpe, although the runways continued to have occasional use by aircraft from other stations, notably Swinderby. A total of 208 bombers failed to return or were lost in UK crashes during the operations flown from Skellingthorpe. This comprised 15 Hampdens, 6 Manchesters and 187 Lancasters. Number 53 base was disbanded on the 15th of November, and Skellingthorpe was allocated as the main site for 58 MU repair and salvage until the 1st of April 1947. It was also allocated as a sub-site to number 93 MU ammunition depot at Wickenby until 1950. A proposal to convert the airfield into a civil airfield in 1948 came to nothing, and during the following decade the runways and other concrete was broken up for hardcore, with the land mostly used for farming. From the 1970s, its proximity to Lincoln saw the encroachment of the housing estates which now cover it. Very few visible traces of the airfield remain. It is locally asserted that over Skellingthorpe Moor there can sometimes be heard the sound of a World War II bomber's engines, although nothing is ever seen. The source for the following is Sean McNeely's YouTube channel on history and folklore. Sean relates a tale from the days when he was working as a gardener on Birchwood Avenue, which was built on the site of the old World War II airfield of Skellingthorpe. One of my customers, an elderly lady, told me that when she first moved in here with her late husband, they would sometimes be woken up in the middle of the night by muffled sounds of voices, laughing and music. She said it sounded like a large gathering or a party, and the music was from the 1930s or 1940s. Sean notes that the sound came from the inside wall of a spare bedroom. He also tells of the apparition of an airman seen in the house. Her husband was in the room one day when he saw the apparition of an airman in full flying gear step out of the wall and vanish. Naturally, he was rather shaken. However, nothing supernatural was seen or heard in the house from that day on. A link to Sean's channel is given in the description below. James Ross contacted me via YouTube on the 13th of May 2025 with the following. I heard about this when I was in the ATC. 50 Squadron used to play the Shrine of St. Cecilia before and after every op. I've heard that playing that song in the old watchtower, now demolished, would spark activity. I've been really trying to think about what Cadet Flight Sergeant Walker said about the watchtower and playing St. Cecilia. I think it might have been the sound of Merlins if memory serves. He was trying his best to scare us as we were doing our Duke of Edinburgh hike and sleeping in tents. Sorry if I can't be more specific, but it's a long time ago. It seemed to be a well-known thing though. Our adult instructors and the RAF Voluntary Reserve seemed to know all about it. A commonly cited account from Skellingthorpe seems to have first appeared in Ghost Stations 2 by Mr. Bruce Barrymore Halpenny. In June 1970, Sylvia Tucker, who had been stationed at Skellingthorpe as a WAF corporal during the Second World War, revisited the airfield and was wandering around taking photos of what remained of the airfield's buildings. She found herself wandering slowly around the flight office and fire section, where she noted how cold it was, even though it was a hot day. She felt unable to move and had the distinct feeling that she was no longer alone. As she stood there, she alleges that she heard Lancaster engines and the sounds of armourers bombing up. And then, she stated, she witnessed the funeral procession for an armourer who had been killed while sitting on the bomb carrier which had exploded, an event which did happen at the airfield on the 19th of May 1944. No one seemed to take much notice of her as the singing and whistling from the airfield continued. And then she saw the man who she was engaged to during the war years. She waved frantically and kept calling him by name, but he did not answer. Suddenly, she heard somebody speaking to her, felt a touch on her arm, and everywhere, instantly, was back as quiet as before. A workman had seen Sylvia acting very strange, waving her arms about with tears streaming down her face, and had approached her to see what the matter was. In his Ghost Stations 5, Bruce Barrymore Halpenny gives the account of James Silver. On the May bank holiday in 1992, at around tea time, early evening, was visiting the remains of Skellingthorpe airfield. Not seeing much there, he asked around a few locals about the airfield and found a man who took him to see what scant remains of RAF Skellingthorpe were still visible. James described a mound of rubble to the left of the road, while on the other side there was a football field, and also about 200 yards of what he called a runway, which was probably the surviving stretch of Peritrack. It was a warm spring evening without any wind to speak of when he stepped on the tarmac surface. The moment he did so, he described becoming icy cold, and a wind was suddenly blowing straight in his face. His chest felt tight, and his heart was pounding. The man who had shown him the runway turned round at this point and asked if he could feel anything. James commented that it had gone very cold, whereupon the local just nodded his head and once more set off up the tarmac. When James started walking, he claims that he couldn't feel his legs, but he managed to keep walking, eventually turning right to the memorial area, whereupon the temperature seemed to return to normal. The local then introduced himself as Barney and shook James's hand. His hand felt icy cold even though it had been in his jacket pockets all the time. He then asked if James wanted to drink in the social club, but James was driving and said no. Then Barney said he had to go. Somewhat strange, James thought, as the man was not seen again after he walked outside the perimeter of the memorial area. When James stepped out of this area to film the memorial, the cold feeling returned and continued until somebody said, "Is this all there is?" It was a man with a camera taking photographs. When he returned to the car, everything was as it had been before, although during his experience he was certain that there was no noise from the area, despite there being people on the football pitch and passing traffic. All in all, A rather strange encounter again at Skellingthorpe. Finally, from Skellingthorpe, we have a poltergeist case from one of the modern houses in Kemble Close. It is included here because it was built on the site of the airfield. This story was run in the Lincolnshire Echo on the 21st of September and again on the 12th of October in 1983. The Hursts, who had 2 children aged 20 months and 4 months at the time, had been urging the council for the previous 2 months to move them because they said that Mrs. Hurst had been pushed to the edge of a nervous breakdown because of the poltergeist activity that they had witnessed in the house. Previous tenants of the council house in question had never complained of experiencing any supernatural events while there. However, the Hursts stated in the article that they were too frightened to stay in the house any longer. While living there, they had seen toys and electrical equipment turning themselves on, heard footsteps, and their daughter Sarah had awakened every night screaming at what they described as a chilling presence in the room. An unnamed medium is claimed by the paper to have identified the spirit of a man called George who had lost his wife, son and dogs while living at the site, but it is not stated whether this information was verified. In October, the Lincolnshire Echo reported that Hurst's plea for a move had been accepted by the City Council and that they were at that time sleeping in one room at their mother's home in Turner Avenue after simply quitting the house in Kemble Close to get away from the activity there while awaiting rehousing. I have not found any later accounts of the property being haunted. As yet, that is.
Shambles, all I've treasured has gone. The town seems deserted, everyone so forlorn. A storm came from up above, but somehow it missed the shrine of Saint Cecilia.